All right, guys. So the Baltimore Ravens lose to the Baltimore Ravens, man. Another example of how the Baltimore Ravens are really the only team that can defeat themselves. Um, a very frustrating game to watch if you're a Ravens fan. It feels like every time, and I was just sending this out to the guys on Discord with our Patreon, man. It feels like every time the Baltimore Ravens play the Steelers, Lamar Jackson's teammates decide just to not show up and to completely, um, poop the bed, man. That's what it felt like today. So if I would have told you that going into this game, we were going to hold Russell Wilson to only 205 yards, 5.7 yards per attempt. We were going to sack him multiple times. He was going to get an interception in the red zone, not throw a single touchdown, and our run defense was going to hold them to 3.6 yards per rush, and that we would have more passing yards and more rushing yards than the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we would even keep George Pickens in check. Would you have thought that we were going to lose that game? There's no way that if I told you we were going to hold Russell Wilson to 5.7 per attempt, an interception, 0 touchdowns, and hold their rush attack to 3.6 yards per rush, that we were going to walk away with a loss in that game. Absolutely embarrassing. A very embarrassing loss for the Baltimore Ravens. We can go through all the miscues of how the Ravens beat themselves, which we will here in a second, but it is very clear that the Baltimore Ravens are such a better team than the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're more complete on both sides of the football right now. Our defense held them in check. Our offense moved the ball, but decided to fumble 3 times today. I know one of them goes down as an interception. And then we have our all-pro kicker, future Hall of Fame kicker, who is typically, who would have thought that our kicker would have been the problem, right? Justin Tucker has been so good for so long. If we make one of those field goals, we win the game. If we get 2 of those field goals, we definitely win the game. And you're not trying to go for 2 there in the last second of the game. I thought the coaching staff was fine today. I don't even want to put blame on the coaching staff because there wasn't a lot of like boneheaded dumb calls or mistakes or challenges or game mismanagement. I didn't think so. I thought that the coaching staff was great. They put their players in great position, except for the last 2-point conversion play. I don't like how there's no options for Lamar. I don't like how you don't have Derrick Henry, who you paid in free agency, who's a future Hall of Fame running back. I don't like how he's not in the backfield as even a threat to get the football. You got to have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on the field at the same time on a 2-point conversion. Like you just have to. That's like Baltimore Ravens 101. That was the only play that I was upset with about the coaching staff. But man, let's look at some numbers here. Let's go through some of the miscues because it's not all bad. It's so frustrating that you walk away with a loss here, especially when it's such a winnable game. Like you had more yards, more passing yards, more rushing yards. You got the interception in the red zone, but you walk away with a loss. That's why it's so frustrating. We'll get into thanks for everyone that's in the live stream. Shout out to King Zebek. Justin got to go. Steelers won by field goal. We lost by field goal. Crazy. Yeah, man. If we make those 2 field goals, completely different game. And I don't know, like, would we have the gumption to bench Tucker? I mean, because then Tucker, he made, was it the 54-yarder that he made? But he missed the 2 shorter ones. So weird what's going on with Justin Tucker now. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. All right, let's see. Pittsburgh never scored a touchdown. That makes you sick to think that we lost a game in which we had more passing yards, more rushing yards. They never scored a touchdown, and we walk away with a lose. This is how the Steelers find a way to win, and it feels like sometimes the Baltimore Ravens find a way to lose. That's what we're talking about sometimes, man. So, yeah, super frustrating that that we outgain them. They don't score a touchdown. We still walk away with a loss. Let's get into some numbers and some plays here. So the first like big self-inflicted miscue that we had was the Derrick Henry fumble. Like Derrick Henry is an all-star football player. He's done so many great things for the offense this year. He's already over 1,000 yards through 10 games, and on that run, fumbles it on the first drive. Like felt like it just momentum killer, right? I would have loved to go down there and punch him right in the mouth with a touchdown to start the game, which is what we typically do on the first time we touch the ball in offense, but we get the fumble. The next series, we have a Deontay Johnson drop down the sideline, missed field goal. Then we have a no holding call on Isaiah Likely. Isaiah Likely gets clearly held by Pittsburgh safety. No call there. And then Justin Tucker misses again. Another miscue we had was Isaiah Likely fumbles the football. And then Justice Hill, I don't even know if I can be mad at Justice Hill. I didn't think that was an interception. It looked like the ball wasn't transferred into the linebacker's hands until the butt touched the ground. So if he doesn't have full possession of the football and Justice Hill, his butt's on the ground, how does that go as an interception? I don't understand that. I thought that was so clearly not an interception. And that's what's so frustrating too, is Lamar Jackson, like with pressure, puts a beautiful touch pass, like lobs it up in the air, drops it right in the bucket for Justice Hill. Justice Hill makes a great catch. And then a beautiful pass from your quarterback, from your MVP quarterback, turns into an interception. So frustrating. Another miscue. First of all, we had it felt like we were in 1st and 20 or 2nd and 15 the whole entire game because of penalties. Ton of penalties today. And then, man, how about that Zay Flowers drop where Lamar Jackson is the last, possession of the game. Lamar Jackson, he's dancing around, dodging guys, making guys miss, sets his feet, fires a strike over the middle of the field, and Zay Flowers hits him in the hands. And he does he puts his hands over his head. Terrible drop. So between Derrick Henry's fumble, Isaiah Likely's fumble, 2 missed field goals, 15 penalties, Justice Hill getting stripped for the interception, you can't tell me that the Pittsburgh Steelers beat us. The Ravens clearly lost to the Ravens today. They got in their way so many times today. And even with getting in their way so many times, it comes down to a 2-point try at the end of the game, and we don't get it. Didn't like that call, like we said earlier. All right, let's look at some numbers before we get too fired up here. We're going to talk about some positive stuff here as well. But let's look at the numbers first. All right, guys, here we go. Team stats. The Ravens have 16 first downs to the Steelers' 18 first downs. It's the worst we've had all season. We were 4 for 11 on third down. They were 4 for 16. So we're better on third down. We have more total yards, 329 to them, 303. We have more yards per play at 6.1 to them at 4.1. More passing yards at 205 to them at 181. More rushing yards at 124 to them at 122. And, man, 12 penalties for 80 yards to their 7 for 45. So we double their penalties and penalty yardage. But here it is right here. Here it is. 3 turnovers, 1 interception thrown, and 2 fumbles. I can't believe that beautiful ball that Lamar Jackson drops in the bucket for Justice Hill is going to go down as an interception. That's why you can never rely on stat. Some analyst is going to look at this game and say, "Oh, Lamar had, a touchdown and a pick against the Steelers. He's turned the football over. That's why they didn't win." Didn't watch the game at all, and is going to be completely deceived on how Lamar Jackson actually operated today. With the 2 or 3 drops that were sprinkled in there, Lamar Jackson probably is around 260 passing yards, maybe more, and he'd have a touchdown or 2 with 0 interceptions. Feels like every time the Ravens play the Steelers, Lamar Jackson's teammates decide they're not going to show up. So frustrating. All right, so check it out. Let's look at our box score. Lamar Jackson goes 16 of 33, definitely the worst on the season for 207, a tutty, a pick, 2 sacks, and a 66 passer rating. Russell Wilson, this is one of the positives here. We held him in check, man. On 36 attempts, he only mustered up 205 yards. So Lamar Jackson has more yardage than Russell Wilson on less attempts. He averaged 5.7 yards per completion and threw a pick in the biggest moment of the game to Marlon Humphrey. He also took 4 sacks. That's another positive as the Ravens pass rush got after it today. Odafe Owe with 2 sacks. Shout out to Odafe Owe putting the pressure on. Rushing the football, Derrick Henry averaged 5 yards a pop, about what you'd expect. 13 carries. We had to get away from the run in the fourth quarter. I'd like to see him have more carries, but how many times did we give him a carry and then we had a holding call that put us in 1st and 20? And then you're forced into a passing situation. So how many times did we want to feed Derrick Henry, but penalties, illegal man downfield, holding, whatever it was, stopped us from getting away from our identity, man. So frustrating. Derrick Henry goes 13 for 65 and a tutty. Lamar Jackson, he only rushed the ball 4 times, but was very explosive in those rushes with 46 yards. Justice Hill, only 2 carries for 13. When it comes to receiving, I thought we did a good job on Pickens today. Shout out to Tre'Davious White. If we want to talk about some positives, Tre'Davious White had 2 big stops to Pickens on 3rd down, one in the red zone, one on a big 3rd down conversion for the Ravens to get the football back. He was held for eight catches for 89 yards. Not the best, but there was a couple of times he, like the one deep ball that Russell Wilson, he just dropped in the bucket for Pickens. Brandon Stevens he was in good coverage. He didn't get his head around, which is kind of the story of Brandon Stevens, but George Pickens caught that 37-yard pass from Russell, and it made the stats look, a lot worse for Pickens than it actually was. Darnell Washington only had 2 catches for 42 yards, but they were big catches on big-time moments. So we held their passing offense in check. For the Ravens, our receiving leaders, we had Isaiah Likely for 4 catches for 75 yards. Zay Flowers, 2 catches for 39. He should have done more damage if he caught that football on the last drive, hit him right in the hands, drops it. Rashad Bateman, I'd like to see him get more involved. Because when you target him, good things happen. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but he shows up in big-time moments. He has 2 grabs for 30 yards, a long of 19. And Justice Hill has 4 catches for 28 yards. Mark Andrews gets on the stat sheet with 2 catches for 22 yards. Deontay Johnson had a couple of targets early. Chemistry wasn't there. Drop wasn't working. And he kind of doesn't get involved after that. After those first 2 targets, doesn't happen. No more targets throughout the game. I feel like with the receiving weapons we have right now with Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers, and Bateman and Mandrews, it's not that Deontay doesn't have a role, but you also don't want to take away targets from those guys. Like Bateman, I think he deserves more targets. I just really do. Every time you target him, good things happen, man. So yeah, so frustrating. What a frustrating game, guys. Let's look at defense. Patrick Queen, he balled out against his former team. He had 10 tackles, and the forced fumble was huge. Like, it really was. It was a great play to force the fumble. I think it was on Isaiah Likely, and allowed the Pittsburgh Steelers to kick that field goal right there at the end of the half. On the Ravens side, Roquan Smith goes down with an injury, hamstring injury. The fact that he was out instantly isn't great news for his availability moving forward. Hopefully it's nothing serious. Hopefully nothing long-term, because Hamstring injuries can definitely, kind of linger. But he had 13 tackles and he didn't even play like the entire fourth quarter. So Roquan Smith, he was good today. I mean, he was shooting through blockers and blowing Najee Harris up a few times. 2 tackles for loss, 13 tackles. I thought Roquan Smith had a great game before the injury. Darius Washington, 11 tackles. So if you guys notice this, it's real interesting because the Ravens, they benched Marcus Williams, obviously. And what they did was they put Kyle Hamilton in Marcus Williams' normal role and then had a Darius Washington. They kind of rotated those guys. But your 2 starting safeties was Kyle and Darius. I like that. I think the Ravens should do that moving forward. And they were still able to move Kyle around in some different looks and stuff. But Kyle Hamilton, he's a football player, playmaker, and he's going to make plays no matter where you line him up at on defense. He had 10 total tackles today. 9 of those were solo. And he battled through some injury today. Man, he's such a warrior. Man, he puts it all out there on the line for his team every week. Odafe Owe, that's another positive is the pass rush got after it today. He had 2.5 sacks. 5 tackles. Broderick Washington had a nice win as well. Nice sack. On the day, we had 4 total sacks to their 2. So let's talk about some positives while we're on that subject. Because not a fun game, but you got to move on. You almost just want to say scrap it. Scrap this game. You lost. The Ravens can definitely still win the division. They get to play Pittsburgh again later, and the Pittsburgh Steelers definitely have a tough schedule moving down the stretch. The Ravens can definitely win the division. If not, the Ravens get a wild card, and we can do it that way too. The Ravens' long-term trajectory isn't hindered over this game. It's just frustrating to lose a game like this in which you were so clearly able to win. Zapia says this game was in trouble for us ever since Derrick Henry fumbled. The momentum shifted. That definitely did. It felt like it juiced up the stadium. Rocky Thomas says we own the Ratbirds, period. Hey, man, you guys beat us. So shout out. You guys beat us. It wasn't pretty, as Steelers wins are typically not pretty. And I don't think the Steelers are a real contender this year. The Ravens have the best offense in football. The Steelers, not so much. But they won. They won for sure. Tre'Davious White is now in the starting lineup. Shout out to Trey White because we talked about him in the Discord and the Patreon. He made 2 big plays today on George Pickens. He looks good. I don't know how many snaps he got, but he looks good. It felt like Tre'Davious White getting added into the mix there, and then benching Marcus Williams kind of shifted some things around with the secondary. We didn't have a bunch of missed assignments. We didn't have blown coverages. We were sound on defense today. Like, we didn't kill ourselves on defense. We did kill ourselves on offense, though. Very frustrating. 2 missed field goals. That explains everything. The Ravens easily win this game if Justin Tucker makes 1 of those field goals, if not 2. Or if you take away the Justice Hill interception, which really wasn't an interception whatsoever. You win this game, but, is what it is. Ardarius and White was a change-up. Yes, I agree. Let's look at some more positives here. Let's talk some positives. Let's go back to single screen here. So what I liked Isaiah Likely getting involved, coming back from injury, 75 yards. I liked our pass protection for the most part. We were able to keep Lamar Jackson clean a lot. I thought the Steelers on defense did a good job in coverage today. I was a little bit wrong in that fact because I thought we were going to be able to consistently win those matchups in coverage, and their guys did a good job covering in general, especially on scrambles and stuff. Their pass rush, however, was not as effective as I thought it would be. We kept TJ Watt out of the football game. Like, anytime you're able to, keep TJ Watt from getting a sack or ruining the game, especially on third down, that's a big win for you on offense. So the fact that we were able to handle TJ Watt, I think he had 1 big play on a run to Derrick Henry, blew him up in the backfield, but He was kept in check as a pass rusher, man. TJ Watt was quiet. We held him in check. That was a big positive. So shout out to Roger Rosengarten for hanging in there today against a really tough future Hall of Famer type matchup. Another positive is that we held Russell Wilson in check. We held the passing offense in check, man. He only has 5.7 yards per attempt today, no touchdowns and a pick. And our run defense was, again, elite. We had the best run defense in the NFL heading into this game, and we continued that. You know, they only averaged 3.6 yards per run. We had more passing yards than them, more rushing yards than them. But we walk away with a loss because of 3 turnovers, and we doubled their penalty yards. So a quick way to lose a football game against a team that you're clearly better than is to lose the turnover battle and to rack up penalty yards. And that's exactly what happened today. And that's why it's frustrating, because it feels like I said, every time the Ravens play the Steelers, it feels like Lamar's team doesn't come to play with Lamar. Like the magic where he scrambled out, hit Zay, hits him right in the hands, he just drops it. You know, the crazy holdings, 2 missed field goals. He drops a beautiful ball in the bucket for Justice Hill, and it turns into an interception. Like, those are the type of plays you just got to make. Or Derrick Henry fumbling the football, or Isaiah Likely fumbling the football. That's what I'm talking about when I say like Lamar's teammates don't show up against the Steelers. And how embarrassing was that when Justin Fields he thought he had the first down and he just slides. So much green grass ahead of him, just slides, puts them in 3rd and 1. And obviously they pick it up barely, but he could have iced the game right there. That was crazy. Yeah, boys said clearly better. If you're referring to my comment about the Ravens being clearly better than the Steelers, it is true. It's true. And you can look at several metrics, and I think you could ask almost 99% of analysts, or if you look at betting odds, who's the favorite to win the division. You look at analysts. You could ask the average football fan if they'd rather have Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, or the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into like the playoffs. I mean, the Ravens are the clearly better team. They outgained the Steelers today, rushing and passing, but they just had 3 crazy turnovers. That's how you lose football games. That doesn't mean sometimes the better team does not win. We know that's part of the NFL. Oh man. Casey says Tucker's leg is about as fried as the chicken that he promotes. Man, Justin Tucker. Never thought I'd get to the point. Lawrence, if you guys were in here earlier, we talked about Justin Tucker. I never thought that Justin Tucker would be the problem. Just never did. Never thought that Justin Tucker would be the problem or the reason why we're losing football games. And it's not. You can look back at every game the Ravens have lost this year. Against the Chiefs, we missed field goals. Against the Raiders, we missed field goals. Against the Browns, we missed field goals. Against the Steelers today, we missed 2 field goals. If Justin Tucker makes those kicks like he normally does, we are undefeated right now. Like, put that in perspective. If Justin Tucker makes his kicks, we are undefeated as a football team. And I'm not saying it's all on Justin Tucker. There's other factors. But if you just isolate that metric, that if Tucker makes the kicks that he normally makes, that he's expected to make, that he gets paid to make, then the Ravens are actually undefeated right now. You can trace back every game and situations where we miss field goals. However, Joseph says he has to go as simple as that. Yeah, Steelers couldn't score a touchdown. It's embarrassing, man. The Steelers were not good today. They just weren't. If I told you that, we were going to hold Russ to 5.7 yards an attempt, he would throw 0 touchdowns, They wouldn't have a rushing touchdown. They'd be held to 3.6 yards per attempt on the ground as well. You would have never thought we'd have lost that football game. Shang says something here, coaching failure in a pressure game. I have no problem with coaching staff today besides the play call for the 2-point conversion. The play call for the 2-point conversion where you have, something you may never see again. And Lamar Jackson, the best dual threat quarterback in NFL history, and Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs in NFL history, in the same backfield together, where they're both MVP candidates in the same season, in the same team. You take one off the football field in the most high-pressure situation on a 2-point conversion where you need 2 yards. You take the best running back in the NFL off the football field. That's crazy. That's crazy. I don't get that, man. Because did they really think that Justice Hill was going to get the carry in that situation? No, the Steelers are not thinking Justice Hill is going to get the carry. If Derrick Henry's on the football field, there could be a real possibility that he gets the football because of the caliber of player that he is. But if Justice Hill's on the field, there's no threat. Lamar Jackson's taking it, and it's not a pass because you didn't have your best receivers on the field. You didn't have Bateman and Flowers out there. You had like Tylan Wallace and Nelson Aguilar on the football field. So it's a run. And Justice Hill's not going to get it. So that means there's only one option. It's going to be Lamar Jackson keeping it. And that's why they were able to stop it so easily. There was no threat there, man. And I didn't even want to go on this ramp on this, little, complaining session here because I really wasn't upset with the coaching, as a whole and situational stuff. But to see that happen where Derrick Henry gets taken off the field, and it's not just that. It's not just that Derrick Henry's off the field. It's that you don't have your best receivers on the field. There's no Deontay Johnson. There's no Rashad Bateman. There's no Zay Flowers. It's like Tylan Wallace and Nelson Aguilar. It's not a passing play. And it's not going to Justice Hill. So the process of elimination, Lamar Jackson's going to rush the football there. 100 times, like I want to say 98 times out of 100 with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on the same offense, you should get the 2-point conversion. You just should. Especially with how dominant we've been on offense this year. But we make it so simple. So easy for the Steelers to defend there. We put no conflict on their defenders because they know Justice Hill's not getting the football. Yeah, it's crazy. I'd love to know what the actual play call there was, if there was supposed to be a passing option, because there was nowhere for Lamar Jackson to throw on that. It looked like it was a designed run. This guy, okay, so Wagwan says the North runs through Pittsburgh. What's going to be absolutely fantastic is to see, the Ravens could very well still win the division, but if the Ravens get the wild card and then the Steelers go 1 and done in the playoffs and the Ravens go on a Super Bowl run, that'd be kind of fun, wouldn't it? You ask 9 fans out of 10 in the NFL fans or analysts, or look at the betting odds. Everyone knows the Ravens are the better football team. Yeah, Auntie Antoine May says 22 was not in the game. Unbelievable. It really was. Tap says stop blaming John. This is on Tucker. I'm not blaming John for that. I'm blaming Todd Monken for that play call and the 2-point conversion. But yeah, if Tucker makes the field goals, we're not even having this conversation. If Tucker makes those field goals, we're not having this conversation. Like we said, we trace it back. Every loss this year has been missed field goals. So if Justin Tucker makes his kicks, the Ravens are probably undefeated. Like it's really, it sounds oversimplified, but if you really look at each situation in the game where the Ravens missed field goals, they're probably undefeated if Tucker makes those. And then, what's also frustrating, just from a Ravens fan perspective, is this was finally the game where the defense really got stops. 4 sacks, Russell Wilson looked completely washed in this game. Good luck, Steelers, with your mobile quarterback and Justin Fields that slides 2 yards early, and and Russell Wilson, who the only thing he has in his tool belt right now is throwing the ball 40 yards up in the air to George Pickens. Good luck with that moving forward. But it's frustrating that Russell Wilson looks completely washed at 5.7 yards per attempt and throws a terrible interception to Marlon Humphrey in the end zone. And we clamp them down all game. They're kicking field goals like every drive. And this is the game where the defense gets the stops, and the offense. It's not even like they weren't moving the football. They were able to move the football on the Steelers. They just would go in 1st and 20 with the penalty, and then they would fumble. They fumbled, twice, and then had the interception that wasn't an interception, where the butt's clearly on the ground before the ball transfers possession. But that's the frustrating part. This is the game where the defense really stepped up, man. The time where the defense and the offense both shows up at the same time is those times where you're going to see what we saw against the Broncos, what we saw against the Bills. And if you saw those two games this year, we win 41-10 to the Broncos, 35-10 or something like that to the Bills. There was obviously a lot of those games last year were just blowing out teams by 30, where the offense and the defense show up on the same game. That'd be cool if we could do that again this season. If we do that in the playoffs, where we have this type of defensive performance and we have our typical offensive performance without the turnovers, the Ravens are going to be a really hard team to beat. But the times they lose, they lose to themselves. That's not an overstatement to say that. Yeah, guys, super frustrating loss. See if I have any other notes here. I highlighted a few plays. I want to talk about Tre'Davious White again. Tre'Davious White, really refreshing to see him out there on the field. And the times that he is out there, he gets targeted twice to George Pickens. And Trey White, absolutely suns George Pickens, and he can't do anything. 2 stops on George Pickens and big-time moments, one on 3rd down, I think one towards the end of the game. Marlon Humphrey, shout out to Marlon, who is continuing to have a really strong season. So Marlon Humphrey, Kyle Hamilton are the consistent forces on defense right now. Odafe Owe has had splashes. Like today, we saw 2.5 sacks. Matabike's had splashes. Roquan today had a great game before the hamstring injury. He's had splashes. So our stars right now are consistent forces on defense is Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Hamilton, having pretty great seasons. If those other guys start to show up a little bit more consistently, Matabike, who's shown flashes, Roquan, who showed flashes, Travis Jones with flashes, right? If those other star, stud type of defenders start to show up more consistently, and you have multiple of those dominant performances like we saw last year. Like last year, Matabike was dominant, Hamilton was dominant, Roquan was dominant all at the same time, and you saw what that did on defense. So if we had a little bit more of that, man, the defense is going to be really good. It felt like we figured out some issues that we had in the past. We moved Kyle Hamilton and Ardarius to our 2 safety spots. Tre'Davious White got in on the action. Brandon Stevens was rotated in and out. Nate Wiggins got some more playing time. Felt like we took a big step forward on defense. So that was great to see. Big step forward on defense. If we're going to talk about a positive. Travis Jones, he went down with injury, came back in the game. That was one of the notes I had. Owe, 2 sacks. One was a coverage sack. The other one was a clear win. How about I wrote down this series as well. We had one, Derrick Henry, I think he ripped off like a 20-yard run or something like that, big run, and then it got called back because of a Patrick McCarry holding call. And then we're 1st and 20, Mark Andrews gets a big catch, I think a 13-yard catch on Minkah Fitzpatrick. And then Nelson Aguilar has a false start. So we go, big run, called back by a penalty, big play to counteract that penalty, and then another penalty by Nelson Aguilar. And then Lamar Jackson missed Mark Andrews over the middle, good coverage, and then missed Zay Flowers. Those were probably the two worst plays for Lamar on the day, like obvious misses. And I thought Lamar played well enough to win the game. I really do. 205 passing yards, a touchdown, and an interception, but an interception was a beautiful pass, like a beautiful pass that he dropped it in the bucket to Justice Hill in the wheel route, and it turns into an interception because of the strip. So yeah, self-inflicted wounds and penalties were the story of the game today. Derrick Henry fumble, Zia Likely fumble, Justice Hill gets stripped for the interception, 2 missed field goals by Justin Tucker, and then 8 penalties for 80 yards or something like that. 14 penalties for 80 yards, something crazy. So yeah, guys, that's all for me today. I think this is a game that you gotta take the good, keep the good, look at the bad, throw out the bad. That's what it was, man. We got to get better at penalties. It's a problem at this point. We're the most penalized team in the NFL. Mimi says it here. So thank you all for tuning in. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. We'll have some more content breaking this game down, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. We'll take this L and move forward, man. I think the Ravens are still going to be a very good football team. Frustrating to see this loss today against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but the Ravens got to move forward. Who do they have next on the schedule? Let's see here. Baltimore Ravens play the Chargers on Monday Night Football. So they got a little bit of extra rest. Week 12, and we're going to have the Harbaugh brother showdown against a good Chargers defense. And then we got the Eagles, who are playing well, and then a bye week. So I think you gotta at least win one of these next two, if not both. Definitely both if you want to win the division. Probably one to keep on track for the wild card, to secure your playoff spot. Then we got a bye week, Giants, very winnable. Then we got the Steelers again at home, very winnable. Texans will be a tough matchup, but we can definitely beat them. Browns, and then it's playoffs, man. So, yeah. Got to get ready for these Chargers on Monday Night Football. So, yeah, guys. Thanks, y'all, for tuning in. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you in the next video.